Today I want to talk about motivation and what keeps you motivated. You see, I recall as to how many people, when they first start in business, almost can't sleep with excitement. They've either quit a job or they've chosen to set up on their own, and day one is finally here, and they're up well before the crow calls first thing in the morning, eager to be able to do what it is that they do, and to be able to unleash this new product or service or idea or niche onto the world. And don't get me wrong, we've all go through periods where we are just on fire, we are non-stop. We get up early, we go to bed late, we don't count the clock at any time, we're simply doing the doing, we're in the zone. And yet there are other times where perhaps we're not in that place. It might be that things haven't been going so well recently. It might be that things are tough right now. It might be that it's been a long time since you've either had a break or a real good, great win. And we start to see this decline in motivation. And interestingly, it quickly rubs off. It starts to breed, it's good enough. It'll do. It starts to breed contempt, starts to breed frustration, and eventually regret. So I want to share with you today a number of ways. I think we're going to talk about 11 ways today in which we can remain motivated. We can wake up early in the morning, we can do a full day's work, we can go to bed with a smile on our face, knowing full well that we are well on the way to achieving everything that we set out to achieve. So let's talk about the 11 ways to be able to remain motivated for you as a business owner. Number one is based on the work of Dr. Simon Sinek, and start with why. Now don't get me wrong, you've heard me say a lot about why is so important. You've only got to have children yourself or observe very young children with their parents. But why? 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 It's almost the most popular question on every toddler's lips. And I can't tell you as to how important it is to be able to continue to encourage that inquisitivity, that willingness to be questioning of the what and the where and the how, to be able to find and continue to drive forward your why. Why are you doing what you're doing? What's your big motive? What's the big picture? What are you trying to achieve? What's the problem in the world that you're trying to be able to have a dent on, and in doing so either resolve or find a means towards resolve? What's your why statement? And if you haven't got one of those yet, then I can't encourage you enough to be able to stop what you're doing, stop business, and sit down and really work out as to what your why statement is. Why are you doing what you do? Because unless you've got a why statement, unless you've got something that you're working towards, you're simply in the busyness of business. And that ain't good for anybody. It's not sustainable. So find your why. Now, interestingly enough, not only did Simon Sinek write an exceptionally award-winning book called Start With Why, there's a TED Talk on it, and there's a whole series of resources for it. But some years later, when he realised that although the work that he'd done in Start With Why is phenomenal, that some people were really struggling to be able to determine as to how to find their why. And so his more recent book is the title of the same, How to Find Your Why. And within it, it helps people break down how to find a why if you haven't yet identified what your why is. The two exceptional books from a really, really well-read, researched, cool guy that really understands what his why is and is communicating it with the world. So number one in our 11 steps to staying motivated is find and really connect with your why. Number two, following on from that, is to be able to set some milestone goals along the way to be able to know that you are heading in the right direction. That the why statement is out there as a big ask. We call them BFAGs, big, fat, hairy, audacious goals. Something that is so large that if you're not working towards it continually, the chances are that you might never, ever reach it. Something that is so out there that you've got to be on it all the time, just to stand a chance of being able to come close to being able to achieve your big, fat, hairy, audacious goals. But in order to be able to remain motivated on a daily, weekly, monthly, yearly basis towards the why, then we need some milestones along the way to be able to recognise that we're well on the way to achieving it, that we are still on course. So, off the back of a why statement, number 2 is simply create some milestone goals along the way that confirms to you that everything that you're doing is still on track. And then quickly followed by 3, which are almost in conjunction with each other really, is now produce a plan of what are you going to do on a hourly, daily, weekly basis in order to be able to work towards each milestone. Certainly in my True North, we call these 90-day sprints on the basis that I don't ever, ever, ever want you to be working beyond a quarter towards a milestone. I want you to be able to find milestones that are significant enough that we could tick them off at least 4 times a year and recognise that we are still on course. It maintains our motivations to keep going. But the plan, the 90-step sprint or the 90-day sprint, is what are you going to do on an hourly basis, a daily basis, at maximum a weekly basis towards hitting those milestone goals. It's about breaking down the big plan into smaller bite-sized chunks so you know that every single day and every single hour, every single minute that you are working on it, that you're working effectively towards achieving something. Now, there is a caveat to this, and it's about the language we use, not only on the plan that we write, but on also the internal dialogue that goes on inside our head. And number 4 is about staying positive. Now, don't get me wrong, there are times where stuff happens. There's times where it's really tough to remain positive when all around us is flailing and really struggling. Certainly at the time of recording this, we're still going through the COVID-19 pandemic, and there is a lot of fear and uncertainty right now with regards to what the future might hold. But we have to find the positive. You know the old expression, in every grey cloud there is a silver lining? It's about being able to look for that lining. It's about being able to identify and communicate both externally and internally in a positive manner. It's not allowing yourself to think negative thoughts. It's about being able to switch it, to pivot, to be able to find what the positive is. Even if it's something that's of difficult news to receive, it's saying, okay, I accept that things haven't gone the way I would have hoped. What can I learn from this? What can it teach me? What are the things that I can take from this that I can apply to next time so I can overcome that without the same difficulty? There's a lovely quote from Einstein who said, everyone should make lots of mistakes. Only a fool makes the same one twice. And it's just that. It's about being able to be willing to go out there and to try new things and do new things, to be able to drive you and your ambition and opportunity forward. And if things don't work out the way that you had hoped them to be, it's about finding the positive within it to be able to say, okay, it didn't happen the way I had hoped it would. This happened instead. What can I learn from that? What can I dissect from that to establish as to how to overcome that hurdle so I can become a step further, a step stronger, a step wiser the next time we apply something? What can I take from it? So step 4 is all about a positive mental outlook, a positive physical outlook, ensuring that both the physicality and the mentality remain on course with a positive outcome. Now, I do like step 5. There is something really cool about step 5. It's almost the 5 gold ring type stuff. I'm not going to do that because I'm a terrible singer. Step 5 is all about keeping it fun. It's about not being drawn into the monotony of day-to-day life. Not getting into a rut. And as a result, finding ourselves slipping and being sucked into doing the doing, as opposed to being a leader and driving forward. Understanding that there is fun to be had in almost everything. We just have to perhaps think differently about the task in hand if we've subsequently not found it fun, to find a fun method of doing it or a means of treating ourselves with some fun for having achieved it. So step 5 is all about being able to shake it all up a little bit, to be able to do things differently, maybe a little bit sporadically, to be able to have a little bit of a spring in your step by having some fun in the things that you do. Step 6 in our 11 steps to remain motivated is all about organisation. There is nothing that's going to knock you off track quicker, longer, more significantly than failings to be organised. You know the old expression, it's not over till the fat lady sings? Well, forgive me, I'm not quite sure as to which lady that we're referring to there, and in a non-complimentary or PC manner. But there is something so crucial about ensuring that every single thing that you do has been given consideration as opposed to a wing and a prayer and a hope. Now, don't get me wrong, there's some things to be said for having some fun and some spontaneity in your life. But when it comes to driving the business forward and maintaining motivation, it's all about being able to have a plan and sticking to it and being motivated to be able to stick to it. So organisation is key. Being able to know as to what's coming next so you can gear yourself accordingly, as opposed to continually firefight along the way in the hope that some of this is leading in the right direction. So organisation is key. And the way that we do that is before we finish today, we ensure tomorrow is fully planned. You see, I'm really fortunate that I'm not an A&E brain surgeon or something. Lives don't depend on me being immediately responsible for somebody else. Nothing that I do is going to be a life or death decision for them and their business. Nothing that can't wait at least 2 or 3 breaths for me to be able to give it due considerations to determine as to how important is this to you and how important is it to me and my mission also. You see, in life, for us to commit to anything, it's got to be a win-win-win. We've got to be willing to be able to understand the positives in what we give and what we receive. So organisation is giving us the chance to be able to say, it might be of real importance to you right now, however, the earliest I could possibly give this the due course and attention that it deserves is tomorrow. Let me book it in for between 10 and 11:15, where I've got a gap where I can give it my full attention. Organisation is key to remaining motivated. So from task to task to task, you can stay on point. You can remain being conscious on the task in hand. Number 7 is something that perhaps at some degree we all suffer from, and yet we allow it to go unnoticed, unchecked, unchallenged for far too long, that it subsequently becomes a trait and a real problem. And what I'm talking about is procrastination. Putting things off. The elephant in the room that I'm not prepared to address. I don't really like doing that, so I'll do it tomorrow. And tomorrow never comes, because tomorrow is always tomorrow. We are so good at procrastinating and putting off the things that we don't like to do in favour of filling the time with things that we really enjoy or are competent and capable of doing easily. And yet procrastination is the killer of motivation and the preventer of dreams becoming goals and reality. So number 7, if you want to remain motivated to achieve more for you and your business, is to challenge procrastination head on. To be able to say, when you recognise that you are putting something off, stop there and then and say, what is preventing me from doing this right now? Why am I putting this off? What is the thing that gets to me so much that determines that I justify putting off the inevitable? Because if it needs to get done, it needs to get done. You know the book, Eat That Frog? Well, you know, in that book, they recommend that the best things to do when you're planning your day in your organisation is to ensure that the 3 things that you don't like doing the most are done first. If you don't like cold calling, then make sure that that's one of the first things that you do in the day. And if you've got to make 15 cold calls a day, then get 15 cold calls done before breakfast or before coffee, before anything else. Because at least then, regardless of the outcome, you can tick them off and say, done that for today, don't have to worry about it till tomorrow. But you've got to be willing to challenge procrastination and face up to it and establish as to what is causing it in order that we can find a fun new way to overcome this and prevent it from preventing us from achieving more in business. So step 7 is all about procrastination. Now I love step 8. If there are 8 things to motivate us to stay motivated, then I believe that at least 5 of the 8 are this itself. This is such a biggie, it ought to be number 2, number 3. And it's deadlines. There's a lovely expression, and unfortunately I can never remember as to the originator of who first said this, but the difference between a dream and a goal is action. You've got to be willing to be able to do things in a set time frame if we're ever going to be able to create real progress. If there's 2 things that you need in business to be able to succeed far beyond that you are doing right now, it's a goal and a deadline. Something to work towards and a time frame in which it has to be completed by. And your goal is to be able to set your big why statement and your milestone goals of achievement and to create a plan of works and organisation that is towards those things, and the deadline is about saying, and how quick can I achieve that? I'm reminded of a number of conversations I have with business owners before we start working together when I ask about their big why statements, their what do you want to achieve in life? What will success look like for you? And when you get past the blasé answer, when you start to really dig into the surface about what does success really mean to you, you almost see their eyes light back up again, and this heartbeat starts to increase even further as they start to remind themselves of what motivates them in the first place, that big shiny goal that they first set out to achieve. And then you say, so when are you going to achieve that? And all of a sudden the excuses come out with regards to, and that's what they are, as to why that hasn't been done so far. That this got in the way, and then this happened, and then this happened. Well, they were always going to happen. Doesn't stop you from being able to achieve what you set out to achieve. You've just got to have a different set of motivators to enable you to achieve it. However, once we get to what success really looks like and what do they want, interestingly, the majority of people tell me, if I could try and achieve this by the time I'm X, and they'll come out with an age or a period of time in the future, and it's usually decades away. I'd love to be able to achieve this by the time I retire. I'd love to be able to achieve this by the time I'm 60. If only I could do that by the time my kids have grown up. They've got this perception that in order to be able to go from where they are right now to where they want to be is going to take a lifetime. And ironically, with that attitude, it will. So they're often really, really challenged when I throw back to them, what would you need to do differently to achieve that in the next 3 years? Huh? 3 years? No. I need to achieve this by the time I'm 50. Okay. So you want to continue doing lots and lots of work in your business for the next 25 years until you're 50. What would it take extra than that? What would you need to do differently? Not work harder, but just work smarter. What would you need to do differently to be able to achieve that in the next 5 years instead of 25 years? Because it's a different set of questions, it's a different set of thought process, and ironically, it's a different set of motivation. There is nothing that's going to drive you further in business than having a clear set of goals and an absolute deadline. And if you want a means of being able to do this easily in your business, then turn up tomorrow morning and genuinely believe that tomorrow is the last day of work before you take a 2 or 3 week holiday vacation. I guarantee you, you will be the most productive person you have ever been if you think that this is the day before I'm not here for 2 to 3 weeks. So simply turn up every day and believe that the work that you are contributing towards enables you to be able to take more and more and more vacations, more holidays, more exotic holidays around the world. You know, how hard would you work? What would you do differently if you knew that you could take a holiday every 6 weeks? So deadlines, number 8, is a biggie, and like I say, I've spent a little bit of time on it. Now number 9 is often a little bit of a weird one for many people, because number 9 on our 11 steps to being able to remain motivated is all about multitasking and cutting it out. There is nothing worse than trying to do many things at once and failing at all of them. We are not cut out to multitask well for a significant length of time. If you want to be able to achieve masses of work in your business, then have a list and organise yourself. Be so structured that you retain your interest and attention on one thing at a time. Do it well, pass it on, get on with the next thing in line. Now don't get me wrong, I'm not suggesting for 1 minute that we've got to be able to retain in cyclical time where everything continues to go one after the other after the other. There has to be a multitude of things going on in the business, but your attention can only be spent on one thing at a time, not trying to do one whilst thinking about all the other things that are still left. The last 2 things are quite simple and straightforward and so exciting to be able to share with you. Our 10th motivator to stay motivated is simply reward yourself. Every time you hit a milestone, remember to be able to acknowledge the fact that you have. Take a little bit of time out, even if it's just pizza and beers with the team on a Friday afternoon, and say, we did it. But recognise the achievements of what you've done so far in order to remain motivated to do the things that are yet to be done. Milestones are key to trying to drive the business forward, but recognising that we've achieved those is the other side of the same coin. You can't do one effectively without the other. And the last of our 11 steps to being able to remain motivated, both in work and in life, is simply take some time out. Understand that in order to be the best that you can be for the things that you want to do, there is also the need to be able to take some time out to do the things that you need to do for you. Take some time out to eat properly, to hydrate regularly, to be able to take some exercise. Recognise that the more that you try and be on it 100% all of the time, the more that you will fail to be 100% any of the time. You've got to be willing to be able to stop in order that when you start, you're as good as you can possibly be. And that's our 11 steps to remain motivated. I hope you found it of use. Please feel free to comment and share with others, and look out for all the other hints and tips that we share from My True North, the UK's leading ethical coaching company. Look forward to speaking again soon.